Andrew Urquhart with you on a Friday morning. A lot of talk in the news about AI and perhaps a little bit of confusion about what it is, how it works, and what the impact will be on all of us. You're probably using AI already, although perhaps you might not recognize it as AI. But what does it mean, not just for business and for the way in which they do movies or even journalism, but what does it mean for us in the faith community? Is there a place for AI in our churches, and what are some of the pitfalls to that? Joining me on the program now is the Professor of Computer Graphics at Victoria University in Wellington, Professor Neil Dodgson. Neil, kia ora. Thanks for your time today. Firstly, a little bit of a background. I mean, we've heard of AI, but what exactly is it, Neil?
So AI, artificial intelligence, it's a broad term for any computer system that does things that we used to think you needed human intelligence to do. It's been around for a while. It's been around for 70 years. We've been working on this. So back in the 1950s, we started by getting computers to do things like play chess. But today they're doing so much more. And it's in the news so much now because of things like ChatGPT.
Yep.
ChatGPT can write text that sounds incredibly good. And if you interact with it, it gives you an impression that you're interacting with something that appears to be intelligent.
Now, almost all of us, as I mentioned in the introduction, are probably using AI in some regard. If we've ever Googled, we're using AI. If we've ever asked Alexa a question, that's AI. Or lots of different applications that are out there. But in terms of using it within the spiritual world, in terms of AI being part of our church life, some people are a little bit concerned about what that might mean. Could we have a virtual pastor, perhaps, or perhaps less dramatically, could AI help our church leadership in performing the services and the duties that they do?
Well, it could certainly help in that it's a tool like any other tool. So like, I'm sure your pastors all use mobile phones in order to help them to keep in touch with people. So technology is not necessarily good or bad. It's how we choose to use it.
I mean, sorry to interrupt. Another example of that, I suppose, would be Grammarly. This is an AI bot to help us get our text in the right order. So if we're using Grammarly, that's AI. But what about AI sermons? What if a artificial intelligence ChatGPT, for example, was used to generate this week's sermon? Is that almost unethical? Would a church leader or pastor be cheating to get a ChatGPT sermon?
Well, it does feel like cheating, doesn't it? Now, let's turn this around. Let's say, would it be ethical for your pastor to go grab a book of sermons off the bookshelf and just preach you a sermon that was written by somebody else 50 years ago?
Yeah, okay.
It may mean that they actually preach a better sermon than they normally do, but may not. But then where is the space in that for the Holy Spirit to move? And where is the space in that for the needs of the congregation to be met? So, and you can think of like AI like that. If somebody used ChatGPT to write their entire sermon, I think we'd be really unhappy. ChatGPT hasn't exactly been to theological college. In fact, all ChatGPT is doing is it's stringing one word after another in an order that seems to it to be sensible based on the billions and billions of items of training data it got sent. So what amazes us about ChatGPT is just how good a lot of what it produces is, given that all it really is doing is putting one word down after another.
Interested in your opinion. Oh, sorry to interrupt. Interested in your opinion as to whether it would be any good, because AI, ChatGPT, would have access to theological works. It would have access to those books of sermons written by heroes of the faith previously. I mean, it is getting better and better, but would we be able to spot it? Would we be able to tell the difference between a human-generated sermon and an AI-generated one, do you think?
You probably would, in that I'd imagine that the AI generated one would flow absolutely beautifully and be in beautifully correct English, and would probably deviate from what you might think is good theology at some point.
Yeah.
Because what we found at the university is we ask students to write essays. For example, one of my colleagues teaches education. She says she can support an AI generated essay because it's beautifully written and it's complete nonsense.
Well, some people might say that that sounds like the sermons at my church most weeks.
Yeah.
But
So we'd be quite happy for your pastor to use Grammarly to fix up the grammar, to use a concordance, to use a study guide, to go read other people's sermons to get inspiration. But if you want space for the Holy Spirit to move and inspire the pastor, and you want space for the pastor to be able to speak to the needs of the congregation as they are this week, the pastor's got to put some work in.
Yeah, certainly. I know. Not wanting to throw the church leader of my church under the bus, but something that he did recently. Yes, he wrote the sermon himself. Well, that's what he said. But he asked ChatGPT to give him a graphic for the background of Jesus as a spray painted icon in the style of Banksy. And actually, ChatGPT did a pretty good job, and I don't think any ethical laws were broken in that regard.
No, and that's one of the great things about the image generation stuff, is that we can generate novel artwork that's not got any copyright on it, so you can use it quite happily, and you can generate the stuff that you want.
Yeah.
So I have spent literally hours trawling the internet trying to find images that match what I want when I'm doing presentations. But now you can get ChatGPT and say, "Oh, I'd like a picture of a unicorn in front of my church, please," and it can do it. I tried that. I got several different pictures of unicorns in front of a church, and one of them was something that I could use to illustrate the point I was making.
Wow. No, that is quite remarkable. And I mean, sermons are one thing, and as I mentioned, the AI is getting better. But I'd like to circle back to something you said beforehand, because we're talking about spiritual values. We're talking about a spiritual connection. We're talking about the Holy Spirit working through individuals to bring a particular message for a certain time and space. AI can replicate some aspects of the human condition, but not the spiritual aspect. And there, I think that's the key point. That's the key difference. If it's purely an AI work, where is the Holy Spirit in that?
And that is, well, there's something about the human being guiding and saying, this is the sort of thing I want.
Yeah.
But there's something here about what it means to be human. And this AI revolution that we're now living through is raising questions in lots of people's minds, not churched people and unchurched people, about, well, this machine's now doing something I thought you had to be human. It's making art. It's writing poetry.
Yeah.
You could argue about whether it's good art and good poetry, but it's doing it.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to be human? What does it mean to be human? And we as the church actually have a pretty good answer to that, which is that, well, humans are created in the image of God, created to be in relationship with each other and with God. So there's that spiritual dimension of being in relationship with God, and there's that community dimension of being in relationship with one another.
Yeah. And
that AIs don't do that. They're just machines that are programmed to do what we tell them to do, and they may be producing amazing stuff, but there's none of that relational stuff that we think is so central to what we are as church.
When you're talking about the relational aspect of it, I suppose the other thing where I find it difficult, Neil, to imagine how AI could be in this space, but I don't know, perhaps I'm naive. You can have those chatbot helpers when you go to a website, but for example, could AI be involved in providing pastoral care for somebody who's struggling? Is that a tool that may be useful in the same way that AI is sometimes used to establish a person's need either commercially or medically? Some of that's starting to happen. Could that work pastorally, in your opinion?
I think this is challenging because pastoral care is about human-to-human contact. It's about loving your neighbor as yourself. But you could imagine an AI counseling service where you pour out your woes to the AI and it gives you feedback.
Yeah.
And we've actually had AI systems that have been able to do that since the 1960s, where people have wanted to talk to the machine because the machine understands them. What the machine is really doing is just reflecting back to the person what they're saying. And that is one style of counseling, is reflecting back to the human being what you're saying. But you want something deeper. So it could be useful at that top level of helping people to sort of sort out their thinking.
Yeah.
But you really will be missing that human-to-human contact. The AI doesn't understand what it means to be human. In fact, it doesn't understand anything. It's simply responding to the words you're saying and spitting out words in reaction based on its massive database of what might be appropriate to say in these circumstances.
Interested in your thoughts on this one, because, I mean, we've seen through the course of history that God works remarkably and miraculously through a range of different things. I mean, God spoke through a donkey, God speaks through the printing press, God speaks through computers, as well as speaking through individual people. Do you think the Spirit of God could work through AI for spiritual purposes, to achieve positive outcomes, to achieve God's purpose?
Yes, I do. But then that's the same way you get any technology can be used for good or bad.
Yeah.
So like mobile phones, for example, my mobile phone's amazing. I've got my entire Bible on it. I've got access to study guides that would make a 19th century pastor green with envy, if they're allowed to be envious. And it keeps me in touch with my Bible study group on a daily basis through Instagram and WhatsApp. So amazing resource to actually build the community of God and to build me as a person. But as you will know from owning a mobile phone yourself, lots and lots of distractions, lots of frivolous stuff, lots of fun stuff that's great, but distracts you from other things. So AI will be in the same sort of ballpark, that it could be used for good and for building you up, and could also be used to be an enormous distraction.
And hey, putting things in perspective here, yes, in this brave new world of artificial intelligence, the way in which we do life, the way in which we do community, even church community, may be different, but God isn't worried about what on earth is happening in that regard or in any other. And hey, He will do what He needs to do through us or through technology, in whatever way. Hey, Neil, really appreciate your comments on this interesting and thought-provoking topic. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.